Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with season 9, episode 39 of our weekly Q&A video slash podcasts. If you are currently on YouTube, you can check out the description for links to this on a lot of major podcasting platforms. And if you are in the podcast version right now, then congratulations. This is a special secret message that only you are hearing. If you check the YouTube version, it's definitely not going to be here. Nobody say anything if you're on the YouTube channel. Okay, I think we're really going to get them good with this one.
Okay. So this is the part where you talk about why it's good to listen to the podcast. And
sometimes, but I don't need to pitch it every time.
No, but I'm saying now it's become the part where I say this is why you actually want to see the video a little bit.
No, this time actually I'm also going to argue for the video because we get ad revenue. So there's this thing called money, and you can exchange it for goods and services, and we get
not that small amount of money. You can't.
we get like a little bit more of it. It's like it's trying to wring blood from a stone. There's a little bit. The amount of money you get, if you can imagine, you know how salt and seawater comes from rain, washing off like rock faces. You know, one at a time. Yeah. The amount of money we get is like the amount of salt you get from pouring like a pitcher of water down like the side of like a cliff.
That sounds about right.
It's there. It's real, and theoretically it adds up. But you know, practically we're not gonna feel that difference. It's a drop in the bucket.
So in the spirit of what I've been doing lately is doing footage. So for the longest time we just did relatively generic grinding footage, but in the last couple months I've been motivated to try to use either the challenge character or the multiplayer reward. And this week is Blackest Night Hawkgirl, I think, and Batmobile, and I just cannot bring myself out of our 9 gear slots on our team to put Batmobile on any of them. I just can't.
You can't. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel right.
So I was thinking I'd look ahead to the next week's characters, because next week is actually Blackest Night Doomsday. I thought that would be kind of a neat token fight to put Doomsday, because Flash is a no-brainer. Blackest Night Flash is the best character out of all the Blackest Night characters. The passives are amazing. He's got the speed of Flash. The main problem with him is that his Special 2 will only knock out on the last hit. And Doomsday does not have that problem. However, the next best character, I mean, if we're going to stick with Hawkgirl, right? The idea is that she doubles Blackest Night Flash. So you've got a second Blackest Night Flash because of her. That if you use Blackest Night Batman, he's really good with Tentu Totem, Master's Death Cart, and the Claw of Horus loadout, which if I'm doing this right, if I pick the right footage, you're going to see it, because his Special 1 is fast enough to do it twice against someone with Astro Harness before their invulnerability completes. He gets more than one shot at shattering the gear with Claw of Horus. I think he gets a couple of shots because of the way his Special 1 goes. And so you get basically 4 chances of knocking out their gear. So the chance of you not knocking out their Astro Harness is pretty low. Okay. So you tag him in, scrub that out, and then after the 2 Special 1s, as long as you don't keep on doing Special 1 over and over, do a Special 2, and they're done.
Nice.
So Doomsday, the thing with Doomsday though is that Doomsday can knock out more than one character, and I've got some footage that I'm going to save actually maybe for this Thursday, where he tags in, same loadout with Tentu Totem, Master's Death Cart, and Claw of Horus, but he needs a couple of one swipe to get the second bar of power fully. So one swipe, and then his Special 2 knocks out all 3 of the opposing in multiplayer. Not like a cheap fight that you pick, but he knocks them out in multiplayer. Or maybe I didn't do Claw of Horus. Maybe I did Quake Engine. And I can't remember, because so the beauty of Quake Engine is even if they don't have, because people think of it as a damage over time thing, or if they're using it for Joker, to lock them in. And decrease their ability to swap in and out fast, which is what we're using Hawkgirl for the opposite of, like the Hawkgirl Prime, I mean. But the other beauty is that it will increase the special damage by 50% against somebody with less than 1 bar of power.
Nice.
So you usually don't get that big a boost, and even if they have a bar of power, it has the ability to drain up to 2 bars of power because you're doing a Special 2. So then after the first hit, it actually potentially does the boosted damage anyways.
Okay.
So that's the point. So I've got and if you're gonna be if we're gonna give like a sneak preview, I guess, of Thursdays and maybe next week's Q&A. So next week is Red Lantern Hal Jordan is a challenge. Blackest Night Doomsday is the multiplayer. I've got a team with both of them, and it's actually kind of fun and pretty effective. Yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Before we get to the first question, I want to get to the first question. But I said that thing about the salt and the rock as a joke, and it made me think about something. So if you'll indulge me, I want to talk a little bit about my trip. It's a little old at this point. Okay. But so...
Well, that's actually better, because now you've had a time to process it, and it settles into narrative instead of just like a bunch of information.
Yeah, just
you're making connections.
Yeah. So this trip... there was a lot of pressing based drinking that was going on, and that's not going to make a lot of sense to you.
What?
But,
pressing based drinking?
Yeah. So we were
those are words there. I don't understand.
Yeah,
that.
I'm out.
All right.
Bear with me for a second. It'll make sense, I promise. So I told you I got into coffee on the trip.
Yes.
But the other thing is that we were in varying levels of sort of rural, wilderness, whatever. So we had differing access to water. Right. And so you need a water purification system. And we were also planning on doing some backpacking. And the thing about backpacking is, we didn't do a ton. We did, I think there was only like 2 times where we like packed our like tent with us and stayed out overnight in the tent that we had to carry in the back. But the thing is, the main issue is that you're supposed to have, I forget what the exact number is right now. It's like a liter of water for every 2 hours of hiking you do. Okay. And so if you need to hike for 8 hours,
4 liters is
4 liters of water.
That's 8.
A liter is a kilogram.
8 pounds, yeah.
So it's more than
9 pounds.
Yeah,
almost 9 pounds.
Yeah, almost 9 pounds. So what you need to do for your trips. You need to know where the water is going to be, and you need to purify because you can't take that much with you. Right. It'll make that hiking grueling, and you really feel it. Right. And so we had this system. It's one of the sort of more fancy ones, but we got it on sale, and it's called the Grail. And what it is there is an outer. It's a water bottle. It's a big water bottle. It's a 750 milliliter water bottle. And there's an outer layer of plastic shell that's just like the water bottle itself. And then instead of the top just sort of screwing off, what it is there's an inner plastic sleeve with a filter and purifier at the bottom. So what you do is you just scoop up the water in the sort of water bottle shell, and then you press the filter in the plastic sleeve through. And then what you end up with is the inner chamber, which has all been purified, and then you can just drink straight from it. So it's the size and form factor of a water bottle.
So that's interesting, because I've seen a different design where it's the filter that screws in and you pour through the water. So the outer shell contains the purified water, and it's the filter that you sit in that actually filters the stuff out.
Yeah, and so it's a filter and a purifier. And this is what we used for the trip. We ended up getting it for I think normally it's like a little over $100, and we got it for a decent enough discount that it went from being significantly more expensive than like sort of like the cheap like $40 filtration things where you have like a bag or like a little hand pump, to being slightly more expensive. But instead of just being a filter, it's a filter and purifier. So it also takes out viruses. And so, and then the other thing is that when I got into coffee, I was using the AeroPress. So the AeroPress is something you put the coffee in, and you put the water in, and then you press it down. So there were cases in which I was taking dirty water from a pond, pressing it to make it clean, and then sticking it in something, and then making it dirty with coffee again to drink it. So that's when I say a lot of my drinks were press-based. I had to press out a lot of my things before I had them. But the point is that, you start to get an appreciation for different natural sources of water and their characteristics. Okay. So you want things to be less cloudy so that it doesn't clog up your filter. Your filter lasts better the clearer the water is first.
But you can wash the filter out, right?
You can wash it to make it last longer. Right. But there's it slowly gets blocked with sediment, and when it gets blocked enough, that's when you replace it. That is just like the thing that fails in it, apparently. Right. So you want to start with clear water, and you would learn that if it was like fresh ice melt, that was really, really good. So like, glacial lakes, and that was good for a couple of reasons, because it was also like having it cold. You would have ice cold water because there was literally like ice cubes in it, which was the actual snow and ice of glaciers. And that was really cool because it was like refreshing, and it felt like wrong when people talk about these, it's glacier spring water, and then I was just scooping it up in my little water bottle. But the important part is and it reminded me of the worst water I ever drank, which is I went to this. It was apparently the second tallest waterfall in Canada. So you can look that up and figure out where it was. I don't remember what it is now, but I know it was the second tallest, which is funny to me because second place, it's instantly a lot less appealing. And the other thing that was funny is that it was really thin and narrow. So you get there and it looks kind of dinky and it looks a little crappy. It's very tall.
It's like the mountain peeing.
Yeah, because it's so thin. And then you get up close to the base of it, and there's a lot of water there. It feeds this river, and then I'm there, and I'm like, that's a good amount of water. But when you see it from any distance, because it's so tall, you can see it from far away. Right. And then you look at it, and it's a line. It looks like nothing. Right. And then even when you're relatively close, I'm like, I've seen cooler looking waterfalls that were that didn't have any labels. They weren't in competition for something. And the sad thing is that it's all that. It doesn't look very impressive, and it's not even the tallest. So it doesn't really look like anything, and I don't get to say I visited the tallest waterfall.
We're number 2.
Yeah.
We're number 2.
But this is where it comes back around. So we made a point whenever we went somewhere, me and my friend who I was on the trip with, to, if we had the opportunity, to just drink the water. Okay. And so it's the second tallest waterfall in Canada. And what that means is that it is hitting a lot of rock on the way down.
Right.
And so it didn't look that cloudy. We pressed it. And when you press it, it goes completely clear. And we drank it, and it tasted like I was drinking playground gravel. It was really gross. It was exceptionally gross. And it was because it had hit all the rocks on the way down and picked up all the minerals.
Right,
and they were dissolved.
Right.
So it doesn't get knocked out of the filter or purifier.
Right, because it's not... Yeah, it's in solution.
Yeah, it's in solution. You need to, boil it out.
Can you boil it out?
Well, you distill it.
You have to distill it, because what you'd boil out the water, you catch the water, because then the sediment would stay. So this is... All right, so this is... Remember Good Mythical Morning?
Yeah, I do.
And do you remember that episode we watched way back when?
Where they drank their life-straw pee?
Yeah, it always struck me that they're using those filters would not get rid of
a lot of the
all the stuff that makes it urine. Yeah. Most of it is not sediment. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it right, if you are not sick, if you don't have a catheter in place, there's not going to be a lot of sediment.
So it mostly still just tastes like pee.
It was. I'm thinking that they were just drinking each other's own urine. I'd imagine.
Yeah.
It's not something I'd want to try out myself.
Mm. Yeah, so, I don't think this is useful advice to anybody ever, but if you're going for drinking water out in the bush, I can't imagine that this is where you'd be getting the advice from instead of, a safety source, and this is not a safety source. But the stuff right after a waterfall, you might think would be nice and fresh and whatever, you see that, water, and it tastes pretty nasty. It's pretty gross, because it's just run through a bunch of water. You in general, and even the glacier melt stuff, right? You want to get it right close to the source. If it melts straight into a body of water, that's nice. Right. But those, if you look up Lake Louise and Lake Moraine, those glacier lakes that are that really shocking color of blue, the reason why they're that color is because they have a bunch of micro sediment in it. And so what happens is there's areas where the silt and sediment deposits on its way to the lake, so the bigger pieces fall. And then what you're left with is a bunch of these tiny pieces. And the reason they're so blue is it's for the same reason that the sky is blue, which is there's little particles that refract the light and split it. And so the blue ends up reaching your eyes more easily. And so the reason they're so blue is because they make their own blue instead of sort of just reflecting the natural blue of the sky.
So, so you say that when you get close to the original source of the glacier melt that it's going to be cleaner. But in my mind, I always picture, at the end of winter... And all this, when the snow melts, what do you see? You see big piles of dog poop where people didn't pick up after their pets and snowed over it. So how is it that the glacier is that clean? Because that would be layers of accumulation of snow where there's opportunities for stuff to just get into it. I mean, no dogs, but maybe polar bear poop.
I think
or seal
been
poop.
There longer. And the thing is, I wasn't in an area with polar bears or seals, right? I was in Alberta, British Columbia, the Rocky Mountains there.
But wasn't a ton of wildlife. I don't know what kind of wildlife would be there, like foxes or
wasn't a lot.
Birds
at
flying
that height,
over.
It's not a lot.
Birds flying over and dropping poop.
But that's it's high up there. You think about where it is. There's a lot less animals. Everywhere else, that there's water.
Right.
There's actually probably more animals than that high up.
Right.
Because there's not a lot of trees. You're above the tree line. There's not the same stuff to subsist animals up there.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying though is it feels like that it would be a misleading kind. Did you ever do that experiment in school where you get coffee filter and then you see all the stuff that's in the snow?
Yeah.
I'm imagining glaciers are like that. That's what
So they can be a little bit like that,
Yeah.
but in general, because the glaciers stick around, right? They're enduring. So bits melt off, bits accumulate, but it's not the same sort of process of accumulation. And when you think about it up there, it's kind of, that's like the top of the food chain, you know? That's the stuff before, you know how they talk about like bioaccumulation?
Yes.
Where there will be like heavy metals and like fish, and then the bears will get it, and then whatever, and it goes, you know.
Right. So the
down
predator
line.
fish have the most mercury.
Yeah.
So tuna has a ton of mercury.
Yeah. So the glaciers are right up at the top, though, right? Glaciers are accumulating based off of their height. It's the water's inability, it's air's inability to hold water.
Right.
You're getting the closest to pure water, and instead of crystallizing around a little bit of dust or dirt, which is how like snow and raindrops form, right? It's accumulating on itself. Okay. So there might be a seed somewhere, but you're getting snow generated by other snow at the height where it doesn't need to get on something else before it falls. So it's kind of like the top of the food chain before the bioaccumulation.
Or the bottom of the food chain?
The bottom, I guess, yeah. But that's the sort of cleanest it's ever gonna get.
Right.
And so, you know, a river is in the, you look at the river, what's at the bottom? Dirt and fish poop and silt and muck and algae and whatever.
A lot of sediment.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you're right there up at the top, that's when the least stuff is in there. So not to say there's not stuff, which is why I wasn't just shoveling handfuls of snow into my mouth, which is why I had a filter purifier.
Right.
But I was putting it through something that theoretically would let me drink like 99% of fresh water I encountered, right? Even if it was in a really sort of murky water, it would screw up my filter. It might not taste nice, but I could drink it and I wouldn't be hurt by it. And so I was getting the cleanest stuff when I could have gone for way more bottom of the barrel stuff, where there almost certainly is some like animal pee or some other stuff or dirt or whatever.
And protozoa.
Yeah, I was getting it as nice as it was.
Parasites.
It's not quite the same as the snow you're getting out at ground level. And not all of this is information I directly have, so assume all of that stuff was made up in a lie.
Well, I mean, the pictures you're doing good work.
It's compelling, right?
Well, to negate all the reasons why I would have wanted to see the places where you took those great pictures.
Yeah.
This is the exact opposite. I'm happy never to have to rely on drinking that kind of water.
Have I talked about on the channel yet how I spent like there was 2 times where I went a full week without showering because we were just going place to place, and we were out in the boonies, and we didn't have like real accommodation, so and when I was showering I was dunking myself in like 5-degree water in like a glacial lake. It sounds really cool to bathe in a glacial lake.
No, it doesn't.
It's fun. It's like you've got the mountains all around you, but you're freezing your everything off.
It's good story. It's good to have done it, to be able to say you've done it.
It's what we've talked about when the donkey poop steps with Santorini.
Yeah, exactly.
Where sometimes there are things that are pretty foul while you're there that make great stories afterwards. Where the time that you don't like it is the entire time that it's happening.
Yes.
And the time where it becomes fun and been worth doing is like the second that the physical effects of it have worn off.
That's right.
Right? You know, you're sore for the day of, and once the scent leaves your nostrils and you're in a beautiful place, it's fine. And then maybe you're a little sore the next day and you go, but then as soon as those 2 things are gone, you're like, wow, we did all those donkey poop steps, and then it's something cool. But every moment before that, it's regret, and then it starts paying dividends. And the cool thing is that the unpleasantness is in a short burst, but the dividends, they keep on going. We're talking about it now. It's been years since I climbed those donkey poop steps, and I'm still making hay out of it. I
did it again very recently, just a couple months ago.
Yeah, lucky you.
And only this time because I was doing it on my own. I just went up nonstop.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it took me about 20 something minutes, but it was a lot worse than I remembered. When
20 minutes straight uphill.
Yeah.
Is brutal.
It is.
That's the other thing I really got an appreciation for on my trip, is the elevation gain.
Yeah.
Because there was times where I was making no progress, and it was because there was like a steep elevation gain.
Yeah.
And then there was times where it was incredibly easy. The 1 kilometer can be, you know, a couple minutes, right?
Yeah.
It can be like 15, 20 minutes, or it can be like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it can be either super nice or super grueling, and you can feel like a 3 degree, they'll be like, oh, this next part is like a 5 degree elevation gain, and you feel each degree. And I'm sure anybody who's done like Stairmaster and all those like step programs, right?
Yeah.
Or they have a treadmill with like elevation stuff has felt that. But I never felt that acutely. I kind of, walking was walking.
Right.
And when I was just going from point A to point B, you don't feel it so much, even because, you know, I'm in a pretty flat area. There's hills and there's not hills, and even the hills are pretty gentle. Right. But when you're carrying stuff on your back, I could feel on a really intuitive level. I'm like, oh, it's just evened out. And I look behind me and I don't see an incline, but I'm like, I know it because I no longer want to take a break. I no longer want to stop doing this. So anyways, that's most of our week. We got 0 questions so far, but we've got
a very interesting one.
Yeah, we got an interesting one. So CJ Hafferty, as always, let me know how to pronounce your name if you want, and I'll, for at least the next time, if it's soon enough.
I think that's pretty straightforward. It sounds like an Anglo name.
Yeah, hopefully I got that one right. Yeah. Never know. And they say, who are the 26 characters missing, and are they all available in the Challenge Booster Pack? And so this is referring to the Challenge characters, because we talk about how there are 23 missing, and there are, was it 44? That we have?
There are 43 in the current cycle that's been going on for
43.
two and a half years.
See, I said 44, and I said that's too much, and then I went down 2 to 42, and I completely missed it. I skipped it over. Yeah. My range was good, but my accuracy was. So
do you want to? Should we read off the list of everybody first, or do we want to just talk about the intro parts? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 2-part question. There's who's missing, and then who's not in the challenge pack. So let's talk about who's not in the challenge pack, and then let's round out the list with everybody else.
Right.
So the people who aren't in the challenge pack are Injustice 2 Aquaman, Batgirl Prime, Red Sun Batman, Arkham Origins Deathstroke, Hawkgirl Prime, Injustice 2 Superman, and Wonder Woman 600.
At least the last time I checked, I think it was too.
And it's funny because the naming convention, right? It's the universe and then the character name, and it's funny how it flips between them. I was not reading the same order depending. And then all the people are missing. So there's that list of 7. And then there's also Aquaman Prime, Regime Aquaman, Gaslight Batman, Darkseid Prime, Red Sun Deathstroke, Containment Doomsday, Yellow Lantern Hal Jordan, Regime Killer Frost, Regime Raven, Mortal Kombat Scorpion, Mortal Kombat X Scorpion, Antimatter Sinestro, Boss Solomon Grundy, Elseworld the Flash, Zatanna Prime, and Zod Prime. Yeah. So that's the complete list of people that you can't get. And then the 7 that I listed at the start separately are the people that are also not in any challenge packs.
Yeah,
so and there are that are kind of almost nowhere.
Yeah, there are paid packs. So like say Red Sun Deathstroke is in the Red Sun pack when it comes up, but it's cash. And I think the Hal Jordan Yellow Lantern is in a pack with Hal Jordan Red Lantern Hal Jordan as another paid pack. Mm-hmm. But and I think was there Femme Fatale? Who's in Femme Fatale?
Oh gosh,
is Batgirl in that?
Maybe.
Wonder Woman 600 for sure.
Batgirl is in that, but is the right Batgirl?
Is it Batgirl? No, but is it? If it is, then it's Batgirl Prime. But Wonder Woman 600 is for sure. So there's a mix and a mashup. But I think there's a few characters that are really important, and I think Hawkgirl Prime is probably the single. You remember we've had the discussion. I can't remember how long ago it was, where people break down who they like the tiers of characters. Right?
It's a tier list.
It's a tier list, and they have like A, B, C, and D, and then they put one called S above everybody.
Yeah, S tier. That's very common.
And so here's the thing: almost every fight that you have is as a team. You have 3 characters, and they have 3 characters, and
they have 3 gears. You mean?
No, 3 characters on their team.
Oh, you have 3 characters in the enemy team. You mean by they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the idea of making a tier list based on individual characters in isolation with no consideration of being a member of a team.
No context.
Right. It's weird to me because Hawkgirl Prime in the world that has Tantu Totem has got to be one of the absolute top characters. There's nobody else that can cut down on the time it takes before you can tag in somebody else.
Yeah.
And you really get a sense of how important this is when there's a Joker on the other team that has, I think is it Quake Engine that delays. There's one gear that makes delays tag in, so that you have to wait around longer for all the times that you need to tag somebody out. I mean, even without Tantu Totem, all the times where you want to get somebody off, like out of danger, and swap in somebody who's ready to do something. I can't understand. I guess I can't understand it, but I'm offended but by how little people appreciate Hawkgirl and what she brings to a team.
You're mad on her behalf?
I guess so. I mean, it's a weird thing because it's not surprising. I understand why people get it because they favor the damage dealer. They favor the damage output, right?
Yeah.
More than anything else. But I think for all the gears that are available,
they're the glamorous people,
right? For all the gears that you can use to make Hawkgirl Prime more useful in different ways, whether you want to gear her as a special specialist or as a tank or whatever. That passive, that one ability is so important that the fact that she's missing is probably the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? The biggest failure.
Tragedy.
The tragedy. Yeah, it's a tragedy that she's missing from the challenges. Everybody else, I think, here, you could potentially replace in a way without changing too much. Like, she changes a fight. Like, it's so much more fun. And I'm going to demonstrate that in this Thursday's short footage for the Q&A.
Yeah.
Not Q&A, for the recap. And then next week for the Q&A, I'm hoping.
So you're the guy who, if everybody's talking about their favorite hockey player, you'd be like, nobody mentions the goalie. If we didn't have the goalie, think about how much the enemy team would be scoring.
Well, I think, you know what is interesting? Is that I don't even think goalies are underappreciated. There are star goalies.
That's true.
I mean, there's a lot of goalies that are... I mean, each team has one goalie, so there's not as many goalies as there are defensemen or forwards.
Yeah.
However, like, when a goalie really makes a difference, I think there are some that are thought to... Like, they're standouts, right?
Yeah.
That they actually are marquee type goalies, whereas...
That's true. But the big names are never the goalies. Think about, like, Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, who are the Alex Ovechkin.
Grant Fuhrer.
I don't know.
Patrick Roy.
See, I'm not that into hockey, and I tell you, I can't name a single goalie, and I can name
Really
like a handful of other hockey players.
Eddie Balfour.
Yeah, none of these. There we go.
Oh, Martin, who's the guy who was with the Calgary Flames for so long? I can't remember.
I don't know.
See, to me, it feels like there are a lot of goalies that have been, big money, big. There's a guy that was with the Vegas Knights, Marc-Andre Fleury. Anyways, okay.
You know whose name I wish I had right now, but who I don't.
Who's?
It's that Russian hockey player who had that one off-ice interview where a reporter was interviewing him and he said, "Why you have to be mad? It's only game." And then it was a relatively short clip. You should look it up. Why you have to be mad? It's only game hockey. And then the best part
Is it somebody good?
I don't remember. I think it was somebody in the pro league, but I honestly couldn't tell you. And then the other thing is that somebody talks about him being Russian, and then his voice instantly drops like half an octave when they start talking about Russia. So it goes from, "Well, you have to be mad. This only game," to like, "Oh yes, Russia." It's there's a noticeable change. It's a really wonderful clip. It's one of the all-time greats for sports interviews.
Right.
But anyways,
so looking at that list of players that are missing, can you see? Is there anybody else you see that are really important that would be useful to have? So I think both of the Injustice 2 characters, both Aquaman and Superman, are really good.
yeah,
They have good passives. They have high stats. They're excellent. But Gaslight Batman's really good.
the one that I miss the least is Boss Solomon Grundy. Boss Solomon Grundy, I feel like, is probably the one that I don't care about.
Well, it's not a level of a meme, but it's like the joke on the subreddit for Injustice, where people will always put Solomon Grundy at the top tier, because he's just so awful. And
Containment Doomsday is pretty sad to not have.
yes, Containment Doomsday I think is underappreciated.
He's fun.
If we've got somebody, if you're going to talk about somebody like a goalie who's underappreciated, I think Containment Doomsday is really underappreciated.
Yeah.
Killer Frost Prime is not on this list. Killer Frost Regime is, and she's not that useful. Her ability to nerf healing does surprisingly very little when you're averaging less than a minute per fight.
Yeah. So there we go.
And
yeah.
Anybody? Oh, Batgirl Prime I think is
Batgirl.
underappreciated too, because her passive is okay. It's essentially 3 bars of power to your team, but where she really shines, I think, is because she's the only Batgirl whose follow-up hit to the stun, the startup stun, is 1 hit. So if you're going to be doing splash damage, none of the damage is wasted, which is kind of neat. So I think she's underappreciated. Who else? Is there anybody?
It's funny, you're saying underappreciated and overappreciated, and I don't feel like I have a strong enough finger on the pulse of level of appreciation. So it's this idea, you have to imagine what other people think about people if you haven't been told directly. Something called theory of mind, which is understanding other people sort of outside of you have a separate set of opinions. And so specifically, you have to do some theory of mind theory crafting to when I'm saying under and overappreciated, other than people I hear about a lot. And there's a term that I got from the Twitch streamer Northern Lion NL, where he goes, you make up a guy. Where I feel like I have to make up a guy and then imagine what that guy thinks, and then argue with him about how their opinion is wrong about who's appreciated, because I don't feel like I have that information myself.
Or, alternate view, you go on the subreddit, you see the tier list, you see people arguing about it.
So you have the information.
Yes.
But I don't go on the subreddit. So if I were to say somebody's overappreciated or underappreciated, I'm making up a guy. I'm giving him fake opinions, and then I'm telling you why his opinions are wrong. So, I think you definitely are in a better position to confidently talk about who's better and worse.
Well, this is the interesting thing too. When people tell us that we should be doing other stuff, I would not have the interest. Like part of what works is because I'm willing to spend some of my free time and my fun time doing that kind of stuff because it's still interesting to me.
Yeah,
that I check it out. And I just wouldn't have the energy or the motivation. There's no other game that I care about enough. And part of it is because I don't do any other games. Mm-hmm. So it's easy for me to stay on top of it because
that's true.
I just, go check it out and then, I'm done.
Yeah. So I think we can do one or two more quick things.
Maybe one.
Yeah. So Cameron 107 says to add to the Containment Doomsday point. I think this one's good because we just talked about Containment Doomsday.
Yeah.
His health when max augmented at Elite 10 level 60 is 101,000. With his passive, that's 253,000, putting him ahead of any fully augmented Elite 7 medal. In terms of highest health, he's easily top 3 cards in the game, alongside Blackest Night Flash and Injustice 2 Superman. The advantage that Doomsday has is that he doesn't need specific gears or teammates like Flash, and his extra health doesn't affect matchmaking like it does with Superman. So I don't even know if we need to say too much. I think that's actually just like a really good... We love adding in sort of numbers and math unnecessarily to stuff.
Right.
When we can, and not unnecessarily, but to provide some like very, very mild benefit.
Yeah.
And this is great because this actually really puts the numbers into perspective. I don't think I have anything to add on this. I think that's just a good point.
I just because I like the hearing sound of my own voice, not really. Just because I think the one thing bears repeating is that not only is Doomsday good for Containment Doomsday good for that, Containment Doomsday's damage also gets boosted. So you don't get the full benefit of his damage until his last revive. I can't remember, is it 25% each time?
I think so. I think it's 25%, and it's also a bar and a half of power, right? It's half power.
Right. So that attack, you don't get it fully, but it's also hidden in matchmaking. It doesn't count against you. So Containment Doomsday is potentially a matchmaking nightmare because if you end up facing him because the computer thinks your team...
He has the most hidden stats.
Right. So if he's geared properly, I mean, that it always... And if you...
Massive.
The tag in and tag out is always random, who tags in when. But he can be one of the most difficult people to face if you're facing him in multiplayer.
Yeah. So he also has some sort of hidden power gen, and that's a little more variable because you want to actually have him spent down by the time it's triggering because it will bring you up to 1.5. It won't give you more than 1.5. It won't give you 1.5 extra. It'll just reset you basically to that.
Yeah.
So you might gain as little as 0.
Yeah.
But he's got a ton of hidden stats actually in the tank, and I think we can do one more really quick. And I think it's also from Cameron 107. And this is just because it's topical, as a follow-up to us talking about his Elon Musk comment, right? Just to clarify, the part of my comment about me enjoying the Twitter debacle, in quotes, was about Elon having no idea what he's doing and running the company into the ground in record time. But thousands of people have lost their jobs since then, so it's obviously not as funny anymore. I just hope that he gets his act together before this gets even worse. And I think, I like this comment because it's an acknowledgement of, like, how things can be funny or would be funny in a vacuum, but how something being entertaining doesn't sort of overpower human suffering.
It can be both, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't do anything about the suffering. And it's still funny with that tinge of pathos.
Yeah, it and it's funnier the less you think about it.
Right.
And if you're really thinking about it for long enough, then it probably stops being funny. It's one of those things where it can be kind of problematic when people are just funny, right? When we look at especially people in seats of power, it can sometimes be sort of a tactic of getting taken less seriously.
Right.
And I don't have the original thread anymore. I saw somebody say something really interesting about how Elon does a pretty good job, not of reputation management in general, because he doesn't, but one specific type of reputation management, which is making his decisions seem off the cuff, generated by him, and make sort of the directions of the stuff that he is in control of seem very personal, whim driven. And that's the way he does like polls of like, oh, you know, should I buy Twitter? Should I like sell some of my like Tesla stock? Should I do whatever? And the way that he did things like, for example, after that discussion with Stephen King, where he goes, I wouldn't pay 20 for a check mark. He says, how about 8? And then a lot of people were talking about it, and the narrative was kind of like, oh, you know, Stephen King had this conversation with him, and then he changed how much it cost, right? Mm-hmm. Where people were saying, and I think I tend to agree with them, that he probably, you know, had talked to people, had to workshop stuff. In all likelihood, he planned to start at $20 and then lower the price to something reasonable. That's kind of the anchoring effect, right? Where you start with a number and it influences what people think the value of it is, even if they don't like that number in negotiation. So starting with 20, and everyone goes, 20 is ridiculous. And he goes, 8. And people go, oh, that's a lot less money than 20. I don't know. I definitely wouldn't have paid 20, but would I pay $8 for it? Yeah. And the fact that that sort of 20 is in the back of your head makes it feel more doable.
Right. 8's more acceptable when they start at 20 than it is if we started at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the but so whether or not you think he's saved any face, whether or not you think he's good at reputation management broadly, he is often able to successfully influence that part of the conversation around him, where it makes him seem kind of like a loose cannon individual guy who's just making his decisions. Yeah, a bit of a maverick, a bit of a sort of like a go your own way, you know, off the cuff, shoot from the hip kind of dude. Who, you know, they go, oh, I don't know, maybe tomorrow he'll decide this and he'll just do it, right? And if you think that's a ridiculous way to do things, you don't like him for it. But for a lot of the people I think who are already bought into him, that's kind of like a strong personal brand to have. And so, you know, even the people who don't like him and are saying it's a ridiculous thing for him to have done, when the people who are already a fan of him, who've already really bought in, hear that, they go, yeah, he does kind of just do what he wants. He doesn't wait for, you know, other people. This guy thought it was too much. We just workshopped with him right there. And so it's interesting how, you know, the narrative in the same way of like, you know, him being funny, right? That's something that probably makes some people take him a lot less seriously. Mm-hmm. But it's a reputation management thing that he's done pretty successfully that can make him feel a little more powerful, maybe, and can be potentially a little more dangerous. This idea of like that rugged individualism,
less fungible. It's the same protagonist problem that we talked about last time. That's linked in the description.
He's the guy,
right? Yeah, exactly. No, I think that was the connection, right? Yeah, that we brought up, and it's a problem because, I mean, listen, it's great because we've already bought into the idea that there are individuals like that. Yeah. And he's selling the idea pretty effectively most of the time that he is an individual who's made the decisions and not just some money bags who's tagged or riding the coattails of others who have been more capable at creating things.
So there we go. That's our Elon Musk complaining session, I think. Yeah.
And I do want to point, before we get to the tail end and the credits and stuff, I want to make sure we're running out of questions. We've built up a sort of a library and we're slowly working our way through them. We need more questions. You got to ask us questions. We can't promise you that we'll like them, but we need something to start off or to use as a starting point for some of our discussion.
Or you can say something real inflammatory and we'll shoot you down for a little. No, I'm obviously.
Oh no, I'd go for that.
Oh yeah, you tell us your worst opinion that we're allowed to repeat on air. Yeah. Okay, you know, that'd be interesting. Yeah, if anybody's around here and a longtime fan and you haven't had something to say, give us your sort of controversial take, and not damaging to people, because then we will have to make enemies. Not like, you know, I don't think that insert group of people here like deserves rights, but like I think, and maybe not something as basic as like I think pineapple on pizza is actually really good, because I don't think there's a lot of juice there. Although we probably could talk about that. But if you're like, I like juicy pineapple on pizzas.
There's the juice.
Stop. we can't do this. But if it's like, I actually think that like orange juice is really good with cereal or something weird.
So I want to point out, I don't travel very much. I don't like to travel. I went on a work trip once to Calgary, and back then, I guess I'd still had enough experience eating regular like crappy pizza.
Yeah.
That I got a sense that when I went to order pizza, what people would usually ask you about is, when you say you want everything, or not pizza, maybe Subway.
Yeah. Like
do you want
sandwich,
everything?
Yeah.
And they ask you, do you want hot peppers? Like when you say everything, they still check to make sure you want hot peppers.
Yeah.
So when you order pizza in Calgary, or when I was ordering pizza in Calgary, that one place, and you order pizza, they'd ask you, and you said everything. Do you want pineapples?
Oh, so pineapple was the thing.
Pineapple is the hot pepper. Pineapple is Calgary's hot pepper.
It's like when people are like, what music do you listen to? And then somebody goes, everything. And then it's the things that people will say no to is most often rap and country. And I think rap has become a lot more common. So it's everything. It's like, yeah, even country? And then people go, oh, not really.
Oh, no. Even death metal?
But see, that's I think small enough. I think so many people like country so intensely.
Yeah, because I don't mind country. I've been sold on it with Taylor Swift. I've been sold on it with Shania Twain.
I think everybody likes some country. I don't think anybody's gonna hear Before He Cheats and go, I hate that song. I shouldn't, not anybody, but I think more people than you'd expect. People who say that they don't like country will gladly listen to something by Dolly Parton, like 9 to 5 or something like that, or Before He Cheats. Anyways. So there we go. That's a more positive.
That's Carrie Underwood, right?
I think so. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say. But anyways, to finish up, we have some people we'd like to say some things about and or to. So I'd like to give a shout out to Eliza Bugcatcher Caton. She's been sick 4 times in the past 2 months, apparently.
Does that make her a bug catcher, or does it mean that she gets caught by the bugs? She's the bug caught.
She's both. She's catching them by accident. It's like that time where I was chasing a dragonfly and I got it caught in my sleeve, and then I really freaked out. I looked at my sleeve and the dragonfly looked back at me and went, ah! And then I like shook my sleeve out and then my arm felt all weird. I was like 7.
Oh, I thought the joke was me, and that was last week. But
no. I was like 7 years old. I don't know what I was. I wasn't expecting to catch it. I wanted to chase it. I didn't want to catch it. Apparently.
Oh, it's like when you're kids and you're chasing each other in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
And when somebody doesn't want to be caught and they're running.
Yeah. But if you stop, nothing happens.
Right.
Yeah. It's like that, except instead of another kid, it was a dragonfly. I was
and
a kid in the
got in your sleeve and it was gross.
It got in my sleeve and it was really unpleasant. I probably injured the dragonfly. It was bad for everybody. The dragonfly didn't want to be there. The dragonfly was minding its own business. I was the one who ran up at it like a tiny little serial killer. And then, probably whacked it around to my sleeve a bunch before letting it go. And I certainly did not want to be there with a dragonfly in my sleeve. It felt weird. It wasn't nice. Anyways, this shadow was brought to you by a weak and puny immune system. And we'd also like to give a huge thank you to all the lovely folks who support us on Patreon.
And that would be Bombo Ben, Consul Peasant, and Edwoon, supporting us at the top tier, Last Word. Sinemac and Mohammed Albshaiti at the Your Message Here tier. Shawn, Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Maule, Michael DeVries, Brandon C., Irvin Ruiz, Eddydoo, and Hoshi 127 at the credited level. And Chris Wolf, Scarlet Danny, Awesome Gamer 2for1, Pavu RS, Gavin Malott, and Isfar E at the gratitude level.
Thank you so much for your support. And thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.